Welcome back to Teach2Learn Impromptu Speaking Workshop. So this workshop, like I said a few minutes ago, is going to be along the same lines as the last workshop. So you guys are all going to be giving impromptu speeches again, but we're going to explore another type of prompt today, which is quotes, which is why we had you guys voting on the quotes last week, our last workshop on Monday. But first, opening question. If you could choose to have dinner with any living person, who would it be and why? So go ahead and drop your answers in the discussion text. Obviously, you might be a little confused because this question seems a bit less relevant to public speaking as compared to the previous ones. But we're getting you guys in the mindset of kind of thinking through the lens of different people and analyzing quotes. Oh yeah, make sure to answer why, guys. That's also a good thing with impromptu speaking, is you guys should practice explaining answers that you have for different things. The screen's black. It's probably just loading. I think in the past that's always been the problem. Need the why, guys. All right.
Kevin Hart. Ooh. Fun. Who's your favorite basketball player?
Yeah, Obama. It's like a very diverse set of answers, which is good.
Or Westbrook? Charlie D'Amelio. Charlie D'Amelio is like your age, right?
How old is she?
She's like
16.
Danny, she's older than I am.
Wait, what? Who?
Wait, she's 16.
Yeah, I'm not 16 yet.
She's older than most of us, or at least the freshmen.
Wait, she's only 16?
Technically,
Yeah.
she could be
Danny.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm older than her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Time to buy anti-aging cream.
Danny's old now.
What the heck?
Elderly. Best friend. Yeah, so.
Danny, if it makes you feel older, in Korea, there are like new
Oh my
there are
god.
K-pop stars that are like 14 years old. So if that makes you feel.
God. And I like K-pop, sort of.
I found this out on TikTok yesterday.
So I heard they were really old. Like I heard some people in like K-pop are like 30, but they look 14.
Yeah, but they're also 14-year-olds that look 20.
Oh, that's so weird. Oh.
You're the same age as JoJo Siwa.
Oh no. It doesn't.
I think this conversation got slightly derailed.
She has a boyfriend.
Siwa?
Oh
What?
my god.
She's 17? No!
But she's also like freaking. She's like super tall.
She's not 12. She just acts 12 for marketing purposes.
Wait.
She's like
She's-
17.
Oh wait. Children of Siwa height.
Let's get back on topic.
Yeah. Okay. Looking through the answers, Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, Sky Jackson, Charlie D'Amelio, Zendaya, Russell Westbrook, jeez. Friends.
Oh, to Samantha's question, I don't know. I don't think I listen to it often enough to say I have a favorite.
Johnson. Thanks, Avi, for that helpful insight.
So it's the same as being alone, like I always say.
All right. We're going to go ahead and move on because I think most people have given some answers. But you guys are seeing how there's like a very much of a diverse set of answers, right? And in the same way, quotes can come from a diverse set of people and sources. A quote doesn't have to come from a politician, it doesn't have to come from a world leader in order for you to use it effectively in an argument, in order for you to make an impact on someone else using the quote of someone else. Like, you can even use the quotes of your friends if it's utilized in a certain way. Utilizing the quotes of actors, of athletes, which I think were the most common kinds of answers. And then, of course, still politicians often have very socially impactful and relevant quotes as well to choose from. All right.
It's just a whoops. This is just a general outline of our workshop. We're gonna start with introducing how to integrate quotes into our speeches. Then we're gonna give you a short example on this, and then we're gonna introduce some devices that you can integrate into your speech to make it more entertaining, lively, and interesting for the audience. Then we're gonna move on to our activity, and once we regroup, we're gonna ask our closing question.
Yeah, so there are a lot of parallels to the last workshop, but obviously focusing on different prompts, different devices. So let's just go back and talk about quotes in speeches, more specifically quotes in impromptu speeches. So quotes have a bunch of different uses in general public speaking, right? And usually they're used to solidify an argument or reinforce an idea, which is along the lines of the same thing. So you're using a quote from someone that usually has a decent amount of influence to support your argument. So you're making an argument and you're like, how can I support it? How can I back this up so people will listen to it? And you can often pull quotes from influential people and use those to make yourself seem more reliable. And then also offering a more concise version of the idea. So that is along the same lines of for those of you that use social media where this acronym is relevant, TLDR, too long didn't read, is taking a kind of a broad idea with a lot of different implications. But if you break it down into one quote, it's a little bit ambiguous, right? You don't know exactly what they meant, but you can get a general idea. And basically a quote is something that generally can be used however you want it to if you think it could work. So for example, you see those motivational quote posters all the time in your teachers' classrooms, right? Probably in other places too. And yeah, they're cheesy, but the intention is there. And this is what you guys should be thinking about with all different quotes, is to inspire and impact the reader in some way. So in speech, they're largely going to serve the same purpose as the motivational quote poster, except, maybe a bit less cliche. So here's just a little example, just like last time I gave the outline example. Here's another outline example. So let's just say I have the quote, "To err is human, to forgive divine." So how do I take this quote as a prompt of an impromptu speech and then turn it into an impromptu speech, which is a bit more difficult seeming than the prompt from last week, which is just favorite hobby, favorite extracurricular. So the 3 points I would come up with would be personal interpretation. So how would I interpret this quote? And the way I interpret this quote is, we all make mistakes, but what marks a good person is willingness to forgive others. And then I talk about my personal experiences using that interpretation. So maybe I'll talk about with a specific conflict with a friend or a specific conflict with a family member, and talk about how, it was difficult, but I eventually forgave them and I came out better for it. And then finally, the application. So now you're telling your audience that when the audience members come into conflict with others in their life, trying to rise above and forgive and coming out better for it. So you guys can see the 3 points are a bit different than the 3 points of a regular prompt speech, right? And if you guys have trouble thinking of anything else, I would highly encourage you guys to use this kind of structure. To first, you interpret what you think the quote means, then you talk about how it can relate to your personal experiences, and then talk about how you can apply it to future scenarios, how the audience can apply it to their own lives. Of course, there are other ways to go about giving an impromptu speech with a quote prompt, but I think this is probably the most common structure. And then again, your roadmap and your recap, for those of you that were a bit confused last time, is just the names of these points. So you guys see personal interpretation, personal experiences, application. So if, for example, when I give my roadmap, let's say I'm giving my roadmap right now, I'll say, first I'll talk about how I would personally interpret this quote. Next, I'll talk about how it applies to my own past experiences. And then lastly, I'll discuss how you can apply it to your own lives. Would be pretty much my cookie cutter roadmap right there. Other than that,
Emily, do you mind explaining a little bit, like, in detail about the recap? I know a lot of people are confused about that.
okay, so the recap is basically the same thing as the roadmap, but in a past tense. So in a roadmap is a future tense, right? You're telling your audience what you're about to tell them, or you're telling them generally what to expect coming forward. A recap is more of a reminder of what you told them in the past. So again, I've discussed this before, but roadmap, doing both isn't necessarily, you don't have to do both if your speech is short, but of course we're trying to encourage you guys to try and figure out how you can make your speeches longer by explaining things more in depth, by having more little details in your speech. So but yeah, the recap is like is almost the same thing as a roadmap but flipped around. Does that make sense, or am I just running around in circles right now? Feel free to tell me if I'm running around in circles, because that can happen. Okay. And then for tips on how you can structure your intro and your conclusion, a lot of you were really good at your intros and your conclusions last workshop. You used hooks, you used call to actions. Those are great. You can still use those, but usually you also want to include your quote, at least in the intro, if not in both. It's somehow fitting it in a way that doesn't seem too awkward. So, for example, what I would do for my conclusion is, when next a conflict arises over someone else's mistake, remember, and then I say the quote again, to err is human, to forgive divine. I think for my other mentors, am I making sense here, or am I just
definitely
spitting out nonsense?
I think we're good with the example.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The first device that we're going to introduce is a rhetorical question. For those of you who don't know, a rhetorical question is introduced not necessarily for an answer from the audience, but to ignite thought in their minds and to get them more engaged. It could also be used to start off a speech to hook the audience in and make the whole presentation more interesting. An example is an example is, are you kidding me? You wouldn't expect someone to answer that, right? You wouldn't say, yes, I'm kidding you or something. And then we have the generic have you ever questions that are usually used in advertisements. The second device that we're going to use is metaphors and similes. These are figurative devices used to compare two objects. They draw in the audience to by varying word choice and keeping them engaged. For example, a metaphor would be, the sky is filled with deformed cotton balls today. It's comparing the clouds to cotton balls. And a simile would be as shiny as a silver spoon, because it's utilizing the term like or as to compare two objects.
Yeah, so most of you guys are probably familiar with metaphors and similes already, but you've probably only encountered them in like the literature or poetry that you read in class rather than in actual speeches. But they can be used there too in this pretty much the same way.
This is just a chart to help you get a more general overview of the whole concept. As you can see, it says the similes are used for comparing things using like or as, while a metaphor is comparing something, saying something is something else. Writers or people who are giving the speech use them to create mental images for the audience to make the whole text more lively and interesting.
Okay. So and I want to talk a bit more about devices in general, because I'm not sure we made this completely clear, but devices, think of them as like a toolbox. You have we're trying to add more tools to your toolbox, and as you approach different situations, you'll find that a certain tool fits the situation, or you need certain tools to kind of fit in with the prompts that you've been given. So that's being said, let's think about the 4 devices that we've discussed in this workshop, including, in this workshop and the last workshop, right? We've discussed metaphor, simile. We've discussed my memory is terrible.
Rhetorical question.
We've discussed call to action. We discussed rhetorical question, and we've discussed
Anecdote.
anecdotes. So all 4 of those things, we don't necessarily want you to force yourself to use all 4 of those things, right? Because that would be like seeing a nail and trying to bang on it with a wrench, right? That's not the tool that fits the situation. So you guys have these 4 different tools to use, and you just want to try and use the 1 or the 2 or the 3 that you think really fit in with what you're trying to say, with what you're trying to do. Okay. So for the rest of the workshop, unless you guys have any further questions, we're going to be just going at it again, practicing again, impromptu speaking. So you guys last time answered the poll with the quotes that you wanted to do. We couldn't give all of you your first choice, but we were able to give quite a number of you your first choice. For those of you that didn't answer the poll, we kind of just assigned you one of these 3 quotes randomly. So these 3 quotes on the screen are the ones that we discussed last time. And just like last time, you'll have 5 minutes to prepare in your respective groups. You'll present to your groups with a roughly 2.5 minute guideline, and we'll be giving feedback. Because at the end of the day, we can keep telling you all these different things about public speaking, but if you just practice and practice, you'll just get better naturally. That being said, we have the quote groups here.
Wait,
So
they're on the next slide. They're on the next slide.
You put it on the next slide. I'm smart. Okay, so these are the groups that we sorted everyone into, and you can see your quote on the left. If anyone is not on this list, and that's probably because you were at our 2 p.m. workshop last time, just let us know, and we'll just slot you into a group.
Okay, so go ahead and join your groups now.
Yeah, if you do see your name on this screen, go ahead and join the group that it says.
Do we have 6 mentors?
Yeah, we have 6. We have more than 6 actually.
Oh, Alex, join channel 6. That's your group.
Sorry.
Join
I'll
voice
join.
channel 6. Okay.
Wait, can you repeat that? I don't know what you said. Sorry.
Alex, join voice channel 6.
6.
Okay, I'm dragging some people that.
Oh, Emily, can you keep the quotes up afterwards, or like post them in the discussion so people know?
Yeah, if you don't see your name, we're just about to help you. We want to make sure that everyone that can see their name is in the right voice channel first. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So to repeat the question, let me share my screen real quick, and you guys can see it. So now that you have given your speech, would you choose different quotes? Why? You want to think about, okay, what did you like about what the other people in your group said? Did you think that your quote was comfortable to do? Yeah. did you think of anything else that you want to say in your speech for your quote or for other folks? Just thinking about whether or not you believe your quote was a good fit for you, because you guys all have different experiences in life, and some of those experiences might have allowed certain quotes. Yeah, just think about that. And yeah, we'll give you guys 2 minutes to end the discussion chat. And while you guys are doing that, so some last remarks. The next workshop is August 3rd at 2 p.m. on Discord. If I think I'm calculating this correctly, that is Monday. Right? Yeah, so just be prepared for that. There's no homework, just have a day in your calendar. Yeah, 2 p.m.
It is a Monday, by the way.
Oh, wait, no, for you guys it's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. For you guys it's 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
For you guys it's 10 o'clock, so don't worry about the 2 p.m.
Well, that's about it. After you answer the question, you can log
So
off.
after you answer the question, we're all good. No need to hang around here for much longer. If you guys have any questions, though, to ask us, please stick around. We'll be here for a little bit. So.
Bye, y'all.